Okay, so my name is Hajara Isa, but everybody calls me Hajo. And um, right now I run a trauma healing service and trauma healing stress awareness and holistic well-being service known as Sembé Centre. And in that Sembé Centre, we have the Sembé Circle, which provides specifically that service. And we have started with sending newsletters every 2 weeks. We have a newsletter list, which we'll be happy if you could join
Okay.
the community as well. Because there's a lot of trauma and stress-based suffering, and people feel like they're alone in their struggles. And so I thought, okay, why not provide the education and the community that can help people to heal from trauma, manage their stresses, and basically just improve the well-being of their lives. And this started as a result of my work in northeastern Nigeria. So since 2015, I've worked with IDPs. I started working in Abuja, shuttling between Abuja and Adamawa State. Before I started in 2015. I would say early 2016. I started shuttling between Abuja and Adamawa State before I actually moved completely Adamawa State in 2017.
Okay.
And I moved to a little village called Mubi, which is not too far from the Cameroonian border and used to be the Medina for the Boko Haram. So the Nigerian army had just gotten the place back, and so we were there with my team. At the time, I was with the Red Cross, providing protection services. And protection was very, very challenging because I was working firsthand with the people who were brought out of these villages that were under the control. And I noticed that they had a lot of trauma. They had they had trauma symptoms. Some children even stopped growing as a result of their trauma. Some of them were just angry all the time. And I just felt like if they were able to learn and to describe what was going on with them, then it may ease their struggles, because they can be like, okay, I'm acting this way because of this, and this is what I can do. And funny enough, I noticed also that even in individuals, even us, like we have different types of trauma. We may have childhood trauma, which is known as complex, which may come up as complex PTSD that a lot of us may not be aware of. And I just felt like if people are able to understand their behavior and why they behave in a certain way, and what has influenced this behavior, then maybe they would be able to feel better. And if they did that in a community, then they would never feel alone. They wouldn't feel like this is unique to me. Even though some of the experiences may be unique, overall, these experiences are universal, basically. And it was easy for me to do so because I have a degree in psychology. My first degree is in psychology, and I did a bunch of trauma training in Nigeria and in Kenya as well. And then I went on to get my master's work because I'd say a lot that psychology and social work, there's a thin line between it because we have the same theories and all of that, but application is different. Social work does not just focus on the individual's mind, or the mental state. It focuses also on the physical, on the individual's environment. And I felt like that's as important as the mental health.
Yeah.
Because if you help somebody mentally and you put them back in a harmful environment, then it means you're taking a few steps back, basically.
Yeah.
And this Sembé Circle that I've created, I was inspired by a similar project in Kenya that I worked on. Two projects in Kenya. One, it's called Kumekucha, which is New Dawn in Swahili.
Okay.
And the New Dawn project provides trauma healing trainings to people in communities as a way of promoting social justice. So some of the most difficult and vulnerable communities in Kenya. I mean, like in the coastal regions, some ghettos in Nairobi, where Al-Shabaab usually hires their foot soldiers. So you have families who have either lost their sons to being arrested or lost their sons to because they have gone to join Al-Shabaab. And you have a very, very traumatized community.
Yeah.
So we were providing these trainings to people in the community. I would share a video with you later.
Okay.
Sure.
Okay.
And I just saw firsthand the effects of people understanding what exactly trauma is, and how it's influenced even the whole community. And I witnessed a lot of change. And then the second project is called Mwamko Mpya, which is healing the uniform. And so the director had this brilliant idea. I was working with an amazing lady. Her name is Angie. She had this brilliant idea. She actually, built a methodology for this trauma healing. And then we now created a curriculum for the Kenyan police.
Okay.
So we joke that the Kenyan, you may go to a Kenyan police station and find the police meditating and doing breathing exercises. And this was also, from the social justice perspective, because when you have a police that is trauma informed, then maybe some of the friction between police and community would reduce. Because also the police, they may not be our best friends, but they also have difficulties in their work, in their lives, that sometimes may translate into unpopular behavior that makes some people unhappy. So these projects showed me that, okay, how about we do this in Nigeria, but from the well-being perspective?
Okay.
For starters.
Okay. So
and to see how it works.
Okay. So from what you said, I have a lot of things to ask and a lot of things to unpack. But we'll just do. I would ask you some questions, like one thing at a time. But you've said a lot, and I would like to start by saying that you're doing a very good job, and hopefully you're able to I don't know if I'm pronouncing it right, Sembe.
Yeah, Sembe.
Yeah, it's hopefully it expands into it reaches out to more people, and more people are able to benefit from it. So congrats on that, and good luck, and then hopefully you get to have a positive effect on more people as time goes. So from what you said, the first thing I would like to ask is, because you said you worked in conflict areas in Kenya and in Nigeria as well. Before we get into the trauma aspect for you as a person and people that you worked with, the safety issue, how are you able to go around it? Because those places are quite unsafe, like security wise. So how are you able to navigate around that?
I think safety is subjective.
Okay.
Safety is very, very subjective. What do I mean? I remember always feeling safe. I always felt safe because I think you would know that when you're doing community work, the most important thing is your connection with the community.
Yeah.
So when I started from the Nigerian NGO before I went to Kenya, before I went to Red Cross, the NGO is called Ayahe Foundation. It's in Abuja. It focuses a lot on education as well.
Okay.
The first thing that I did was create a bond with the community. So even the project that I worked on, an education project, I got the people in the community to build those classrooms. I got them to become the teachers. I picked people from the community, trained them to become the teachers. And that way, they were able to have ownership, because I'm sure you also know that in all of your community work, ownership is very important.
Yeah.
People need to know that this is ours. Otherwise, your work is, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Right? So when you give people agency, when you allow people ownership, then you don't feel threatened. They also do not feel threatened. And so that kind of just reduces the friction in the beginning, right? And whenever, think of like when you go to Lagos, you always need to know one of these area boys kind of thing.
Everywhere.
So you always need to have a guy, exactly. So as a result of that, I did not even really feel unsafe. However, when I went to northeastern Nigeria, I remember my first visit to the field, I went to Damboa, which is like 30 minutes away from Chibok. Okay. Literally in like when you're entering Damboa, there's a corner, there's a turn you take to Chibok. And I remember that whole trip, we were driving from Biu in southern Borno. And I remember that whole trip, we were all sitting like that because it's like, and in that part of Nigeria, all the trees have been burnt. The Nigerian military have flattened the entire land so that they can be able to see the people they're fighting with, basically. And I remember that being scary. I remember Damboa being a village with no roofs. All the houses had no roofs. And it was just, and bullets, I mean, it's normal to see a house with bullets. It's like, And I remember...
Like bullet holes or shell casings of bullets? Or both?
Yeah, they were bullet-ridden because by then the shell casings had already been swept and all of that. But they were bullet-ridden. And you could also see, like, sometimes craters in the middle of the road where the military had dropped... I don't know what that thing is from the sky. Yeah, so... At that point, I felt a bit, I would say more on alert, because it's a bit intimidating seeing a clear reminder of what used to be here, in the sense that the roofs have been burnt up, the bullet-ridden, bullet holes in buildings. But alhamdulillah, I was with a very good organization, and we actually had security protocols. You had to check in. We had to always check in every hour with the command center. We had our codes, everything we needed to, all of that. And then, of course, we have a good relationship with the people in the community as well.
Okay.
But I would just wrap this up by saying, yes, it's possible for you to feel very, very scared, especially because these are very small villages and everybody knows everyone. So it's easy for you to be singled out. It's not a place where you can easily camouflage, especially when you're coming from Abuja.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like it's not a place where you can easily camouflage. But the most important thing is to have a good relationship with the locals, because whenever something is happening or something is about to happen, they will give you a phone call and tell you, Madam, this neighborhood, just stay away from it.
Yeah, makes sense.
But it's not the way it is that people think. When I took the job, the way people were talking, you think if you're just walking down the road, a bomb would just drop on your head. It's not like that at all. It's not like that at all.
Yeah, so it's more kind of like not, I wouldn't say like over, like people over portray the security situation, but it is not as bad as people think from the outside. It is bad, but not as bad as people think.
Yeah, exactly. Because I worked in Adamawa State from 2016 to beginning of 2016, 2018, so almost 3 years, and I did not have one security incident.
Okay.
And I wasn't walking around with bulletproof or bodyguards or anything like that. Because you also need to remember there are people that actually live there. There are people who actually live there and do business and everything there.
Makes sense. So so you also mentioned something that I found interesting. You said trauma actually affects physical growth in children. So is that correct, or did I maybe miss how would I say, what is the word to use? Did you say like trauma can affect child like growth in people? Like, do you mean like growth psychologically or physically as well?
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. You know, a big misconception about mental health is that sorry.
Yeah.
A big misconception about mental health is that it's mental, just in the mind, in your brain, in your heart. But it's also very, very physical, and and it it affects the body as well. So the one of one big effect about one big effect of childhood trauma, as apart from behavioral problems, apart from like some mental difficulties, maybe some children are not able to speak properly, some children are not able to process their emotions properly, some children are not able to have relations with people, so that relation is broken, is affecting you physically. You may stop growing, the child may stop growing. And okay, go on.
Yeah, so because we have a lot of children, I see a lot of children, especially like Almajiri children, house helps that you find in homes with stunted growth. Is it to do with malnutrition, or sometimes is it trauma as well, or can it be both?
Man, like it could be both, but you'll be surprised that even a lot a lot of us actually don't eat well. If we're being honest, a lot of us do not really eat balanced meals. I just tweeted now earlier reminding people this Ramadan to eat vegetables, because all we like to do is eat rice, spaghetti, fried potato. Exactly, Uncle. But when now, so imagine there's this malnutrition and there's also the trauma, the stress, because Almajiri don't live a normal life. And children want to be cared for. Children want to have connections with people.
Yeah.
It's that human connection between the parents or the siblings or the society with the child that actually child. I see a lot nurture over nature, because nature, okay, you're born, what next? Then the environment comes in. So when there's trauma, when there's heightened levels of stress, which I would say Almajiri children go through a lot of stress, you find that you have, I'm trying not to get too technical here, you find that you have chemicals in your brain. You release some more of the bad chemicals, not bad chemicals, but too much of everything is bad. So you have some chemicals in your brain, for example, like cortisol, which is the stress hormone, just pumping, and then it's stopping the other hormones from, the chemicals from doing their job. So that definitely would have an effect, on the child. And I remember in Adamawa seeing an 18-year-old boy who was like 4 feet tall. And yeah, this boy was very petite. And if you notice, a lot of these Almajiri are really small. And when you ask Shekana Kana, how old are you? They'll tell you I'm 12. And you're like, huh? But you look 6 or 7. I don't know if you've had this experience.
Well, no, definitely, because the community we go to, we volunteer to do the summer school programs. A lot of the kids, you find that they're actually much older than you assume. So when you see them, you think they're supposed to be in primary 1 or 2, but ideally they should be in primary 6. But physically, they look small, and also like mentally as well, like they're not as advanced as they should be in terms of academics as well. So I guess that is similar in a way. But does that mean then that trauma also affects brain development?
Absolutely, absolutely. Like the first thing that trauma does actually is that it changes the brain.
Hmm.
Yeah.
In what way
That's
can you expand on that? In what way?
okay. God, I'm trying so hard not to sound so chemically, but I'll
No,
try not to be too biological.
it's fine.
But
We
basically,
need to be educated, so we don't mind.
okay. Um, we have something called neuroplasticity,
Okay.
which defines itself. Neuro being
Mm.
your brain, plasticity means being plastic, which simply put is the brain's ability to change itself, kind of, because every single day you're creating new pathways in your brain. You have your neurotransmitters, which are the cells in the brain that are always, it's sparking. Think of just wires.
Yeah.
Think of them as wires. There's just sparking, sparking, sparking. So, for example, when you slap your child, a connection is made that I just got slapped. When you slap your child again, this connection made becomes stronger. That okay, this has happened again. You slap your child the third time, the connection becomes strong, even stronger.
Yeah.
That this is normal. That this violence is normal. So I'm just this from this simple example, you can see that this is how patterns are formed in people. This is how personalities are formed in people. Because the trauma will change your brain, but at the same time, even positive experiences will change your brain. So if you take this slapping and you switch it to ice cream, for example.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. So
every time you give your kid an ice cream, they're like, oh, okay, this is nice. Oh, okay, this is what people do. This is what parents give to their children. And then you do it again, you do it again, you do it again. That forms a connection.
Okay, so
that becomes a pathway that influences their behavior.
Yeah. Yeah, so I was going to ask, sorry to cut you short. So from what you're saying, basically this kind of explains, because I think I was reading like some of the work you've done is how people use drugs to cope, and also people who are in abusive relationships, why they don't leave. So from what you're explaining, what I'm understanding is that if you do something long enough, your brain learns to normalize it, so it doesn't seem out of ordinary anymore. So that kind of explains how people remain in abusive relationships, or how people use drugs to cope.
Okay. And we say that trauma makes the abnormal normal. In the case of abusive relationships, the people in those abusive relationships are not seeing it as abnormal. That's what people don't understand. So when you sit down and you're trying to rationalize, you're trying to explain to them, you're trying to bring logic to them, it's like, because if I was beaten as a child and told that this is love, and I'm beaten in my relationship, I know that this person loves me. That kind of situation. Also, in the situation of drug use, you have people sometimes want to cope. People are looking for ways to cope, and the brain has been wired in the sense that all it thinks about is how to survive. Think of the Almajiri kid. All this kid wants to do is survive. Yes or no?
Yeah.
It's not about friendship. It's not about education. It's not about any of these things. It is just about survival.
Yeah.
And that's why sometimes also you can feel like, oh, this person is trying to manipulate me. but this person is just trying to find ways to survive. This person, and not just Almajiri, even some of us, we're that way. We've been wired to just survive. And the thing is that so when you're wired to survive, you're in a state called the sympathetic activation state, where you have just adrenaline. It's just adrenaline. And as a result, if you need to switch off, you're not able to switch off because you don't know what's going on with you. So what do you end up doing?
Yeah, makes sense.
You learn some, it's not just drug addiction. There's all sorts of addictive behaviors that people do. People try to find ways to escape. And so this is what Sembé Circle just tries to do, is like what I'm doing with you right now. Is sit down with people and let's just have this discussion. Let us learn about what's going on within us so that we can identify and know how, what the next steps should be.